everyone, I'm Robbie Herring and I'm here today for Live with Prima. I'm really excited to be here and really glad to have y'all here too. It's a new place for me to be and I'm super excited. So we're going to start out with some announcements, and the first thing is to be sure to tune in on Thursday, 6:30 Pacific time to see Adrienne. She's making a gorgeous layout and she is using the brand new oil pastels, and those are really neat, so you definitely don't want to miss that. And the other thing is that if you haven't seen it on Facebook or on livewithprima.net, this month there's a warehouse sale box and it's $50, but it's got over $200 worth of product in it, so you also don't want to miss that. There's about half of them already gone, so you need to hurry up and get over there if you want one. All right, so let's show you the project. Okay, I'm going to scoot back a little bit so y'all can see. This is a little tricky to show it, and you might notice that my camera's up a little high today. It's daytime, and that's so we can make sure you can see this. Whenever I was asked to be here, I was like, first thing was, okay, what am I going to make? And so I decided that stick with what I love and what I know, and so I did a dress form. And so here we go, and you can see I've used tulle and lots of the metals from Prima that are just stunning. And then I did a lace that I did out of doilies, and I'm going to show y'all how to do that for her bodice. And then the other thing is I found these neat little Lazy Susans I was researching. So although let's see, if I raise it real high, you can see. Can't see it very well, but it makes it so neat because you can put these on a table and turn them, and they can be visible from every side. Okay, first of all, let's get turned down, so hang tight. I'm going to move the camera and hope it goes well. Little bit different angles than normal today because I want to make sure that I'm not banging into the camera with the project since it's taller. Okay, and we're going to work mostly flat, but still. So this is about 16 inches tall. It's just a paper mache dress form that you can pick up at Joann's. I've seen them online at Flying Unicorn. So you have some options. I'll give you a hint though when you're searching for this. They are called mannequins, not dress forms. So that makes it easier to search. And so I started out and I worked ahead just a little bit, and I went ahead and I sprayed tea stain color bloom sprays. I'll remember the names of things. And this is number, let's see, 573836, and I went ahead and this is just a wood disc that I picked up. You can see I haven't taken the price tag off of it. Real inexpensive, and this is what we're going to build on. So they'll fit together, and then the little Lazy Susan part goes in the middle. So I worked ahead and went ahead and sprayed those. And then the first thing that I did was I built her bodice. Let me show you what I got here. I used the die cuts from Prima, and this is, I'm a little shaky, I'm a little nervous today. This is 572785, and if you have these, you know that they're fabulous. And watching Delena's show, I guess it's been a couple of weeks ago, she had done doilies on copy paper, and so I did that too. I loved how they were so easy to manipulate, so when I was thinking about how I wanted to do this doll, I decided to try to do that too. So these were just cut with just your regular printer paper, inexpensive. And then I also went ahead and gave them a light spray of the tea stain mist as well. All right, let's show how we put her together. And I'm going to get out my thing. So did y'all see my new Prima mat? It's funny how long I've wanted one, and I finally got one. So I'm very excited about that. Okay. So to build her bodice, what I did was I took some of the 3D matte gel, and this is number 398. And you'll see I like to work on these. They're plastic disposable plates, but I love to use them because they're so good because you can wash them. So not as much waste as using a regular paper plate, but gives me a little more room than some of the artist palettes, which I love too, but this really works well for me. And then the 3D matte gel, I added a bit of water to it. And the reason I did that was, for one, it made these get a little bit wetter, which made them a little bit easier to to go around her body and to make sure that we like got it in everywhere on her where all the bends and all that are. And so that's how I started. The other thing is it really cuts down on our drying time because it's not as thick. And when layering and having an hour to work, you definitely want to try. So just mix this up, just some water. And I have the brand new Prima brushes, and if y'all don't have them, let me give you the number for that. This is 962760, and if you don't have these, you want them. But mine are so new and pretty that I just can't bring myself to use them for the gel because I want to use my old one. And those brushes are really fabulous too because if you they come to like such a flat tip here that they're just terrific to work with. So this one is just an old brush that I've gooped up, and I don't care if I mess it up, so it's all good. Okay, so to start with this, I want to build what her bodice is going to look like. And so I took these, like I said, these are all pre-done, and I cut off the ruffles. And I know these don't look like ruffles yet, but they will. Let me cut them off real quick. And this will give us some pieces to build the top part, and it'll also give us the look of a ruffle. And I cut them into just pieces of 3. And this I'm not going to need, although you could use it some more. Okay. And then to start, the way I did this is I put it here to build her ruffle around her. And I'm going to show you before I start gluing it down. And this is how I start to build where her bodice is going to be. And for the top one, the rest of them I won't care, but the top one I am only going to put it on the edges because I want these scallops that are actually on the doily to be something I can bend and add some dimension down the road. And you can layer as many of these as you want to make it as ornate as you would like. I just did a couple of them here. You can see. And then I just went around her body and built around here. And I went up a little bit underneath her arm because her back is going to be a little bit lower than the front of her dress. And you can see it's not taking a lot of this. This matte gel is really terrific. It sticks super easy. You can see how easily these are going down. Whoops. Of course, if you drop it in, it's not going to ruffle. Let's just grab another one because we're going to need more for the back anyway. Might should have cut a few of these. And I'm going to apologize for not being able to keep up with the chat a lot, but I'm gonna try to look at it when I can. Okay. So same thing on this side. Whoops. And then also on the back. And this isn't an exact science. As you can see, I'm doing this very quickly, so you don't have to worry about it being just perfect or any specific way because you're going to be ruffling it, and we're also going to be adding some tulle, which will cover anything you might not like down the road. Okay, and you can see here on the back, let me show you, I'm basically just giving it a straight edge across for where the scallops are, but any way you want to do it works. And I'm going to cut one more because I do want to double ruffle the top for the front. Oops. Have y'all ever noticed how your, how your screensaver like never comes on until you don't want it to come on, and then it comes on and your screen goes black? So when you see me reaching over there, I really am reaching over there so I can see to make sure, because I know I have a habit of getting out of the camera range a bit. Okay, and then this I'm just, just going to double ruffle a little bit, and we'll pop these up later. Okay, so there you have it. That is the top of her dress. Okay, so for the rest, this is where this really becomes, to me, really neat with the way this works, is that all you have to do is put some of this on, and you don't need a ton, but you definitely want enough coverage that it'll grab. And we're just going to start filling in. It doesn't really matter where, and you are going to get a little bit messy doing this, but I like the look of it purposely not being all the same. So I'm purposely not like lining it up in the center or anything like that. I'm just adding some layers. And this is where this old brush really comes in, because I don't mind if I have to like punch on it or mess it up. If it tears, and they will occasionally because it is copy paper, no worries on that either, because we're going to put a few layers, so there's not going to be any place that truly shows. But see how nicely that this doily fits and conforms to her body shape because it's not so thick. And here's where we're going. So let's do another. And I couldn't remember how many I used of these, so I cut a ton of them. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to have some, let me turn where I can see a little bit. Pretty sure I'm going to have some left over for another project, which is never a bad thing. You can see this goes pretty quickly. Just going to keep building on her. I'm trying not to get as messy as normal, but I think we're going to give that up and just go ahead and use my fingers where I want to. It's supposed to be messy. I think it makes it a little more fun. I see someone saying you must have Prima dyes, and I can totally agree with that. They're so intricate. They're just really beautiful. And they really did turn out looking pretty much like lace on here. And I don't know if y'all can see, hopefully you can see well enough to see that some of these pop down, they're not pop up, they're not laying down perfectly, but if you keep working with them, they'll just lay right down. So you can see how this is starting to look like just a lace all over pattern. Might need a little more water. It's drying a little bit. And that's the other thing you can do. You can, if they're a little stiff, or if what you're using is a little stiff, You can even have a mister standing by and you can mist a little bit to soften up these papers a little bit. And that's it. Uh-oh, this brush is so old it's falling apart too. It only does that if it's live though. Things like that don't happen when you're just creating in your own room by yourself. And you can see I'm not going all the way. I'm overlapping it a little bit from the bottom, but I'm not going all the way down because none of that's going to show. It's all going to be hidden under the tulle and the embellishments and all the pretty stuff that comes after this. I think this really is, even though it's quick, it's still probably the longest of the individual steps. Okay, almost there. And then I also did this same thing on the wood base, and it's the exact same thing, just to cover it and to pull that lace look down to the bottom for the little bit that does show. And that's much quicker because it's flat. Okay, so that is it. And you can see, we may have to put a dryer on her just a little bit, but you can see how she's already starting to dry. So let's do the base real quick, and then we will move on to the next step. And I overlapped just a bit here. And I'll use my fingers to go over there in just a sec to make sure. Let's just go ahead and do that. That's where your fingers come in. They are your best art tool. And you could even cut this if you wanted, cut these pieces if you wanted to add more, and you could even ruffle these too. I just decided, since not much of it showed, and it was just to give a hint of this look at the bottom, that I wouldn't. Looks like I have pretty close to the, I guess pretty close on how much gel medium I needed out. So that's a plus. Let's get this other one. Okay. Can't get that one. That one wants to stick to my brush, not to the thing. Here we go. And that is our base, y'all. Super easy, but pretty still. There we go. Okay, I'm going to set these aside, all this aside, because I don't think we're going to need it again. And then I'm going to show y'all the next thing. I'm not going to dry this till we need it. But I do want to show y'all kind of how the steps go. And the first thing I did was I added the tulle, and I have pre-cut most of it. And I'm a tulle freak. I love it. And so what I do to get these ruffles is I tie. It's really simple. I call it a shoestring bow. It's like you tie your shoes every single day. Don't worry a lot about how long these are because I like to cut them at the end. And that way they're the length I actually want them once the whole thing is built. So all you're doing is a shoestring bow. You're going to go ahead and cut it however long, like I said. I mean, obviously you don't want to cut it real short. You want some length here. But the beauty of this tulle is it's so inexpensive. And this is kind of a golden color that I picked up at the craft store. Okay, and then to do the ruffle, you want to open up these bows. So just, you don't want these folds. So you can see the difference here where it's open and real soft and where, as opposed to it being all gathered up. And this is literally, I used 5 for the bottom layer and 7 for the top, and I'm fixing to put her together once we get her a little dry. And this is seriously the only thing we do, and we're going to glue her on. Okay, let me give her a little bit of a dry because I'm looking at her, she's still a little gummy. I'd hope to avoid much. And we still won't have a lot because most of this is quick. I am going to tell y'all that I'm using hot glue today in the interest of time. It's paper to paper, so it'll hold, and it should hold pretty long, but I honestly would use like Fabri-Tac or something stronger, or even the gel mediums to attach it if I were just doing it. But trying to make it go quick, I thought the hot glue gun is the best answer. Okay. Okay, I think that's good enough that she'll start to glue. If not, we'll give her a little bit of more of a dry. Okay, again, the tulle bows, I have done those in advance because I figure once you see how to do one, you don't need to see how to do a whole bunch. Let me move over my hot glue gun. Okay, so I wanted to make sure her skirt was really full. So what I did was I did a bottom layer and then I did another layer on top. So, and where I put these, and this hot glue gun gets so hot, so I'm hoping that I can make it through the show without burning myself. And you can see I have way too much length here, but I'm definitely going to cut that to size when the time comes. And you can see now how this ruffle is going to start. So it doesn't end up looking like a bow. It looks just like gathers of tulle. And you don't need to do them real tight. You can, but you don't have to. You just want to do them close enough to where they're going to at least be touching once they're all poofed up. Is that a word, poofed? Yeah. Here we go. And this, when it's all cut to size, will definitely make her skirt just really stand out by doing the bottom layer. So that is how simple the bottom layer is. And I'm going to go ahead and trim this down just a bit. Keep it, if you go ahead and do this, and I'll say, you know, normally when you're not on a camera, you're working upright. But I know that working upright, y'all can't see it. So make sure you leave it a little bit long because you want to be able to have it kind of stand out, and tulle will do that. It'll stand out, and it'll stand out over time. So I'm going to trim these just a bit to make it a little easier for me to work with. And I know I'm off camera trimming, but I'm just cutting them a little bit shorter. Okay. And you can see I didn't even do those even because well, actually you can't see because I'm off camera. Once she's standing up, that's when you'll do the true trim. Okay, so then the next layer, I did a little bit tighter because remember this layer is just to make the skirt stand out and be more full. So this one I did a tiny bit tighter and I used 7, but it's still not like super over the top tight. And when you're doing this, make sure that you kind of pull this down because you want these bottom, the streamers of the bows to be the skirt. So make sure they don't get caught up in your glue when you're gluing these down. And I speak from experience on that because I've done it and had quite a mess here and there. So you can see how her skirt is really coming together now, which is making it look like a dress. I thought about trying to do her as a bride, but then I could not figure out exactly where I wanted to go, and I really wanted to use the metals, but I think she would be so pretty, things like these for bridal showers and even just as something sweet as a bride to sit around your home. We are doing good. I haven't burned myself yet. That is a red letter day. And you can see I'm not being gentle with this. Tulle is not gonna, it's not gonna flatten like some things will. So you have some time and you have some time to manipulate and get it all in place without having to worry about kid gloves. And I actually think I'm going to end up with 8 on this one because I tied the extra. And this one I got a little tighter. But again, anything goes. It doesn't matter how you do it. You just do it to your style. Oops, popped one off. Okay, now I'm going to straighten her up a bit. She's kind of a mess, and I'm going to stand her up, so you might be able to see a little bit of me trimming this down too. But again, you'd rather be too long than too short. If for some reason you do get it too short because of the way it's done, you can always go back and add more pieces of tulle to add some long pieces in to make her look the way you would prefer her to look. Whoops, pulled one off. I have the doors, except for one, to my scrap room closed so that if my dogs acted up, I could close them out. And it's making it hot in my room because it is so hot in Texas. I don't know how hot it is where y'all are, but it is miserable here. We are ready for fall. Okay, so let me show y'all. So you can see that we've ended up with a really pretty ruffle all the way around her. And you can poof it out, smush it down. Like I said, it's all up to your individual taste. Okay, now let's scoot this down. The next thing I did is I'm really drawn to the steampunk, but having said that, I don't tend to like do it. I just admire it and love seeing what the people do. And I had the idea that maybe I would go and do her steampunk this time. But then I started going back to my normal, I like this pretty ruffly look, but I still wanted to add the metals. So these memory hardware chains, And y'all, there's a ton of these in a package. You definitely want to get your hands on some. This is number 990305. And I couldn't say the word Louviers to save my life. But if I got close, I'm good with that. And they come in pieces. So whoops, sorry, hit the camera. So I took one of the pieces and I took some little pins. And this is going to be the start of adding the metals that I love. And these are just little short pins. Here, you can see, they got a head on them, which makes them much easier to work with. And I am going to use Fabri-Tac for this because I do want this to stay. And it may have stayed, but I knew if I put a little Fabri-Tac on the tips of the, sorry, I'm going to put it on paper here to make it easy for me. If I put it on the tips of the pin before I push them into the paper mache, I really knew it would stay. So that's the goal, is to make her stay and stand the test of time, because otherwise it's not worth doing. So just looped it through, and for the first one, I looped both ends. What? Naturally, gonna do something like that. It's not gonna matter. Let me wipe it off. Trying to make sure y'all can see it and making a mess. Okay. Actually, let's just grab another and clean that up later. Better off. And sorry, y'all aren't gonna see the glue. I'll show you here in a sec. Not gonna do that again. Like I said, there's so much chain in here, it's really a non-issue, because I can grab another one. Okay, so in each end, and this head will also keep it from going through these loops. And then I'm going to just give it a little dip in the glue. And then where I went is that top row, I just moved it back. It doesn't matter where, but I moved the ruffle parts up and moved those long parts I told you not to glue down. And I just kind of went in between there and pushed it in. And they will push in to this fairly easily, because you don't need really strong hands, because I know sometimes that can be an issue, is how hard they are to get in. Okay, and then you can see I looped it over the top so I could do it. And then I just went approximately the middle, another pin, and I'm going to go ahead and let's see. Yeah, that's pretty close. And I went to the other side. Let me get my glue, dip it in a little bit of glue. Same thing, pull up your little ruffles. And you can see some of these I have more gap. And we're going to stick it in on the other side. And as sure as I said it was easy, there we go. This one doesn't want to go in. And I've also knocked off one of the bows. And as you can see, this might be the tricky thing if you have glue around you. You want to make sure you don't get the glue around you. Okay. Or get it stuck in the glue. And I'm going to stand her up, because I think if I do her this way, y'all can see. And then I just took one approximately in the center again. And I'm going to go ahead and stick these, because I'm making a mess with the glue. But trust me, I will go back and put some glue on her to make sure. And about halfway. And we're ending up with some loops. And these are a little longer than the ones I did last time. By design, she won't be exactly the same. And you can see here how it's hanging down below the ruffle. And we got one more. So again, personal taste. And in fact, I don't know if y'all do, sometimes I go and after I'm finished with a project, I start looking at it and looking at it again, and I think of all these things. And in hindsight, I wished I had put a few more layers, and even mixed up some colors would be a great idea to do with these. And add all the different colors of metal. And so again, there we go. we've got her, and I don't like where that one is, so this one without glue might be a blessing. Didn't get quite in the middle on her. Okay, so you can see how the chain was added to the bottom. And then you can see that I've smooshed her down a little bit. You can fluff her back up a little bit. And we're going to add something that is going to go over, I'm going to set her aside right now, some ruffles of the paper to go over it'll cover up the pins. Okay. Now, this is something I do quite a bit on projects. I have the biggest mess with my hands with all these glues. Give me one sec because I'm sticking to stuff. Okay. This is something I love to do, and I do it quite a bit, is to ruffle the paper. And for a dress, it really is the perfect touch. Some kind of ruffles using our favorite papers. This is actually the Debutante collection, and it is Regency Roses, and I love this pink color. And so it is, let's see, number 847180. And all I did, this is a 1-inch strip. I give it a little bit of spray of mist, and then we're going to ruffle it. And you can see that, I'm going to come up here close where you can see. I'm just pinching it as I go and pushing it. It's not an exact science. We're just trying to get a little bit of that ruffledy feel that to me looks like clothes and looks frilly. And if it dries up a bit, because I don't use a ton, because if you use a ton of water, you'll tear it. So you're better to use a little bit of water and keep adding a little if you need it, as opposed to really saturating it. This also I didn't mention. It's 1 inch wide, and we're going to cut it into pieces. So see how I'm getting a ruffle here? I also distressed and I used knotted wood on the edges, and then just distressed it a little bit. And the knotted wood, okay, I'm sorry, it's not on the thing, but it is knotted wood. It's the chalk inkers, and it's my all-time favorite color. I love that color for distressing, and I guess we're all drawing and all have our favorites, but that is definitely mine. And this is what it ends up like. And as it dries, once it's dry, if you want more, you can do more, but you've already gotten the paper loosened up. The other little tip I'm going to tell you is this is 1 inch wide, and it's very easily manipulated. If you do, the wider the paper is, the harder it's going to be to manipulate. And because I wanted this to go around, I wanted it to be something that was movable. So definitely keep it in mind if you're doing something big. And again, I'm going to set this one aside. And again, I've done these ahead because I've tried to cut out as much drying time as possible. Okay, so let me show you what we're doing. That same area that we went between, we're going to start adding some paper ruffles. And this is really super simple. We're going to get our chain out of the way, hopefully. It's funny, whenever I did this before the show, I knew that this was going to be my biggest challenge, was trying to keep the chain out of the way, and I have definitely proven that correct. Okay, so these are 12 inches long, but after I ruffled them, I'm cutting them in half because it's much easier to work with them if they're smaller. So, going to add a little bit of hot glue. Oh goodness, an hour goes so fast. I just happened to look at the clock. I'm hurrying. Okay, and I'm going to hold this chain out of my way, and I'm going to just tuck it in there. So here we're starting to get a ruffle. And I'm going to pull that up where you can see. And just push it in there. And remember, we're going to be putting embellishments and all that. So again, there is really nothing about this that has to be exactly perfect. So don't sweat it with this one. And I'm overlapping a tiny bit. I'll pull my chain. So you can see how that is overlapping a bit. Let me get these pins out of my way. Get my glue gun a little closer. Okay. Just keep building around. You push it in. Try to keep your chain out. Okay, I'm going to stand her up. Make sure I get my chain loose. And in fact, there we go. That gets it out of my way a bit. And I know I'm going off camera a tiny bit to do the glue gun just to keep it out of my way, but that's all I'm doing is just grabbing my glue gun to put it on. We're going to go ahead and add one more. And odds are, once you stand her up, you will see places that, oh, I wish I had a little bit more of that pink. Just go back in at the end when you've got her all stood up and just add a few more layers. These are already overlapped, so more is good. And trying to make sure it grabs hold. It's taking a sec. Okay, so let me show y'all. So here's where we've got, and see how where it's overlapped, it's even more ruffled. That's why I said if you want to go back and add, and odds are you will, and odds are I will too, just keep adding the pieces. These little pleats or ruffles or pleats are so easy to do that there's no reason you can't add as many as you want. So now you can see we've got that. Okay, now on to embellishing. I think that is looking at the other one. Oh, you know what? I did not show y'all. I'm not on to embellishing yet. One more thing real quick. And I'm actually not going to do it because we're going to trim her and I'm looking at the time. But I did the same thing on the bottom. On her base, to make sure that I covered the Lazy Susan, I did the same thing. I just took these ruffles, I cut them, and I just ruffled around the bottom and glued her. And that gave me more room for the Lazy Susan piece, which was good, so it could cover it if a little tip of the metal showed, because it's not pretty, so that's not the pretty kind of metal we want to show. So that is the other thing I did with the ruffled paper, so you'll definitely want to add that. Next thing on the tool, actually let's talk ribbon. Okay. I thought I told everybody in my world I was teaching today, so sorry about my phone ringing, I can hear it. The ribbon, this is also another thing I do pretty often. And I used the tea stain, which again is 573836, and the ginger coral, which is 580285. This coral color matches the Debutante beautifully. I'm going to go ahead and give those a little shake when I get started. Okay, this is seam binding, the Hug Snug. I love this. And for the ribbon, I did the same thing. My fingers are a mess. Shouldn't have touched it quite so much. I think the Fabri-Tac put it over the edge. Okay. I tied a couple of little bows, and I just want to show y'all how to do this. Of course, I've worked ahead on it too because it actually takes quite a bit of time to dry because I like to saturate it quite a bit. So a couple of shoestring bows, a couple of pieces, whatever you think you want to use. And then what I did was, obviously this is going out of the way after I'm done, is a few little spritzes of the tea stain. And I went heavier on the tea stain because of the gold color than I did on the Debutante for this one. Because for me that just worked better with the gold of the tulle and the tea stain on her bodice and all the metals. And then I just take the ribbon and saturate it. And again, I'm using more tea stain, so any white, I just added a bit more. And I did all this, and then I wadded it up and let it dry. And that is all it takes to get the ribbon. I just used white ribbon, by the way, and that's all it takes to get that color correct. Okay, let's move this out of the way. I think we're done with all the messy. And I'm going to see if I can get this bloom sprays off my fingers. I got the Lazy Susans on Amazon, and actually, I keep forgetting to show it to y'all. And oh, here we go. Okay, let me show y'all this. I can't believe it. I keep forgetting. And I'm going to open it. These are really inexpensive, and this is 3 inches. And I found them because I was like, how do you make a Lazy Susan? How cool would it be for these to turn? And so I went searching, and this came up. And it's like pre-done. So small, it'll fit on the bottom of these or anything else small, because I didn't want a giant base. You know, I've seen at the stores where you can buy it, but I just wanted something really small. I will tell y'all, I did see, I believe it was Home Depot carries a 4-inch, but this is a 3-inch. And I can't remember what it cost, but very inexpensive. Okay, so now we've got our ribbon done, and let's go ahead and add the last bit of tulle to her bodice. And here it is. Okay, this I did very simply. I took a, you do it really simply if you don't knock your camera off. I'm sorry. Okay, and this is just a piece, a long piece of tulle, and I took a piece. You can see here, here's my 2 bows, and here's just some extra pieces I did in case I needed them. And I gathered this. All this tulle makes this a big project on your table in a small spot. And I tied a little piece of this in a knot. And I decided to keep this simple because I was doing so much on the lower part of her dress that I wanted to just keep this as a simple little hint of the ribbon, a hint of the tulle, and also just to give her a little more interest at the top in a subtle way. So, okay. I need to move some of this stuff out of my way. So this went at the top, and I added, and I'm actually going to use Fabri-Tac for this. And the reason that I'm even using, like I said, number one, I always would anyway, but the other thing is it gives you a little bit of time to manipulate if you need, where the hot glue is pretty much, once it's dry, you might rip something. So you want a little time. And I stuck this in the center. And then I opened this out a bit because I wanted it to end up being a bit of her bodice. And then the other thing I did is to make sure, you might need to, and I'm going to go ahead and do it because I know I needed to last time. I needed to hold it in place. I needed to put a tiny bit right here at the edge of that bottom edge of the ruffle when we built it earlier, just to hold it and keep this open. And I mean a very tiny bit, because the Fabri-Tac is clear, but if you goop it, it'll definitely show through. And then I wrapped it around, and see, I didn't get that. It's got manipulation time, so, but you definitely got to wait for it to dry and catch. And after this is done, you can even go back and add more of this open ruffle up here. And this is where that not having it done works so pretty, is it turns it into a ruffle. Flip her over, and I tied her in a knot, no biggie. And this actually, I got a little shorter than the last one, but that's fine. You could also tie it in a bow if that's your preference. I don't know when the tulle became a she, but it has evidently. And since I did this one short, let's go ahead and keep them short. And actually, let's go ahead and just make it short altogether. I like that too. And there we have that. So you can see there. Okay, now time to start decorating her. And this is gonna go pretty quickly, I think. So started out, like I said, with the metals, and I'm gonna show y'all everything I used. And I used some things that I already had, bits and pieces. This is definitely your personal preference. I know we all have our favorites. I think my favorites truly may be the clocks. So that started as the main focal point. And you can see here, it's the Finnabair Vintage Trinkets, and it is number 960278. And since that's my favorite, it took center stage. And that's actually where I started to build. And I will eventually get this package open. I have the biggest mess here, and if you don't know me, you don't know that I don't like to scrap in a mess. So it's getting a little flustering. Okay, and again, I'll quit repeating this, but definitely don't use hot glue for this to stay long term. We're just using it for the interest of time. And I'll quit repeating that. Okay. And then what I did is I didn't put a bunch of glue. I put it at the bottom though, because I want to start tucking this in. Let's see, of course I can't get it to come out now. There we go. And I started out just by tucking it in right about here. Wanted it on the front, but not perfectly centered. So here we go with that. And then I started just building it with bits and pieces. So I'm gonna go ahead and show y'all a few because this is getting pretty crowded here, and let y'all know the metals that I chose to use. These are also Finnabair Mechanicals, and this is 961091. I love these little scalloped pieces, and so I used these. And then I'm going to dump these and start grabbing them. This one, I had only one package, but I loved them, and I kind of used them as an afterthought. And you can see here, I cut them in half because since I'm tucking them in, a lot of it wasn't showing anyway. So I thought, why not? Just cut them in half, and then I have them. So these are Vintage Trinkets, and they're 960315. These are Junkyard Findings. Aren't these pretty? These are 892227, and I love these little keyholes. This is another thing that I just had some bits and pieces left in my stash, and I thought, grab those. I only had one package of these, but I used a different one, and on this one I'm going to use one of the ones that's still left. And these are from Timeless Memories. These are the metal trinkets, and they're 579814. These bottle cap looking things are so fun to me. Aren't these neat? And this is 960391. And then the one thing I did, I love leaves. Absolutely love them. And I used these, and this is the main piece that I had to have for this, and I'll show y'all that when we start putting it together. It's 579821. So those are the metal pieces that I chose to use. Of course, whatever your favorites are will work because you're layering these and putting things in, and it really truly does not matter what you choose to use. So I just started to build around her body, and I am going to open some of these packages and grab a few of these, and then we'll just gather what we want as we go. And it doesn't have to be exact. And I'm going to grab these halves that I used. And by the way, I said I cut them in half. I didn't tell y'all. Your Tim Holtz scissors will just zip right through those. Doesn't slow them down a bit. Not much harder than cutting paper. And this one doesn't want to open. Go. Let's see. Aside from the clock, I really didn't use any pieces that were super large. I wanted that and the flowers and all of that to pull together. So I wanted one thing to stand up, but not a whole bunch. So, okay. So then we're just going to start adding bits and pieces as we go here around the edges. And I'm already going to start apologizing that it obviously looks like I'm going to be over, and I was for sure I would not be. So I'm going to do this quickly. You can see I'm not, no rhyme or reason. I'm going to move that up a bit. I don't think I got enough glue on that one. This is another reason hot glue is not your best bet for metals. It will work for now, but you really, I said I wasn't going to say that again, didn't I? Okay. The other thing is, don't make everything all the same height. You want to you know, vary the heights, vary the looks. You don't want to put all metal flowers together or all metal keyholes together or whatever. You just want to vary what you're doing. You can layer them on top of each other and put something inside and just work your way around. Here's one of these halves. Please text me if I get out of range. I'm trying to make sure y'all can see and I can see. Let's put a little layer there. And you can see too that I'm not doing a real thick layer, and the reason is that I'm going to come back and let's put that there. Actually, that's pretty centered. Let's scoot it over a bit. I'm going to come back and add flowers. So you don't need them all touching everywhere, or you have no place to really come back in and add some of your extra details. And I kind of wanted to mix these up and do a little bit of whatever was striking my fancy at the time. That is stuck. Okay. You can turn these and you can put them within the ruffle if you'd like. There's like just truly a million ideas, and it's totally, whoops, I got out of the camera range again, sorry. Totally up to your personal preference. And let's put something inside that. And like this is pretty open, so I'm gonna stick one of these little pieces inside of it. I don't know. It's all good. Okay, so you can see that that's where we've gone. It's just some pieces, and I'm going to leave these out because I feel certain I'll end up wanting to add something. All right, now the flowers, I used a mix. I used the Debutante flowers because I wanted to make sure that I pulled in some of the pink. And so these are Debutante. They're 580735. I'm starting to dump stuff on the table. And let's see what I used. That should do it. That's enough. Just a little bit of that color. Let's see. Actually, I want to use, I was looking at what I used last time, and I did like this one too. Okay. So I used those. And then the other thing I used is the Coy, I think these are Coy. Yeah, Coy Otis. And these are 581145. And love these. Love these. They are so good because you can, they're made obviously. They're not put together already with the centers. So you're able to manipulate them more, and I'll show you all that more too. And then the Coy Liam leaves. And I've already admitted I'm a leaf freak. So 581138. So see these? And that's what we did with the florals. So first off, we're going to do our color. And again, it's kind of my focal point has ended up being here. So that's where I put my color. And that's where, here's my leaf, my very favorite leaf. So this is where it kind of all comes together as my focal point of her dress. And I gave this a little bit of a bend. And these metals you can manipulate, some of them more easily than others. This one happens to be one that bends pretty simply. And I just started tucking these in with the ribbon. And here we come back to the ribbon. Here's one more little tip about the ribbon while we're talking. You can see that because this was all gathered together and dried, it's kind of stiff. It's not going to hang down real pretty, but it will because we're going to give it a mist of water. So here we go. And I'm going to glue these two little ones together. You could tie them in the center. You could add more tulle. I'll tell y'all, just to chat, after I did this, I thought, ooh, wouldn't raffia look pretty on her? I like this mix of all the pretties and all the the soft tulles and the hard metals, and it was so pretty. And I thought, ooh, raffia could be really neat. So endless ideas to add. Okay, and this I just added underneath here. And again, that chain, it wants to defeat me. And I just glued it in. Let's see if I got enough glue to make it grab. I think so. And then take your little water mister, and you can give it just a couple of mists, and it'll loosen it up without, now if you over mist it, it's going to straighten it all out again. I just want to loosen it up. So loosen it up and it'll start to hang. And I did not get, so let's use a little Fabri-Tac so I don't burn myself. Okay, here we go. Now that'll eventually stick well. Okay, now same thing with the leaf. We're going to add it here. And that's going to, I want it to come down, and I'm going to turn it where you can see a little bit. The whole thing is to make the kind of the leaf come down with the ribbon and the skirt and to pull the whole idea together in this area. So let's add the leaf. I'm going to make sure it grabs this time. I think with the hot glue, I'm expecting it to grab so fast, I'm forgetting to let it truly grab. Okay, and then we're going to add a little bit of the flowers. I think I'm going to stick with what I did before because it worked and I liked it. Okay. Okay, we're just going to put them here and start adding. And that brings me to my leaves, which I've set over here. Oh, hit the camera again. I think that's third time. And I only used a couple of these Coy leaves, but they definitely had to make an appearance, especially using the Coy flowers. And the color of these, I never finished my whole thought process. The color of these really, I thought, would lend itself to the raffia. And I'm really picky about raffia, and like I said, I really thought I wasn't gonna have a whole hour. I thought I was gonna be ahead. So I even got my raffia out. So I'll show y'all here in a sec what I love if we have a couple secs, because I'm really picky about which ones I like. Okay, and again, remember how I said we're gonna start layering? I did this, and this is out of the same package with the leaf. I'm gonna tuck in a metal rose too to this grouping. And I know it's a little bit difficult to see here. I might need to get something to put under here. And so I'm just grouping them this way. So see? And then it feeds down into here. And this is where I can see right here where it's kind of open. This is what I talked about going back in and adding a little piece of ruffle. So you can keep adding as you prefer. To keep the whole thing flowing and pulled together, because each one, because it's not exact, is going to be a bit different. You know, your tulle is not, there's no way you're going to knot your tulle exactly the same each time, and so just go with the flow, making sure it grabs hold. Okay, here's where these Coys come in. These are super cool for this. And I'm just dumping at this point. Okay, so these I used a couple of ways. I used them to fill in the gaps. Let me see. Nah, okay, it's better this way. See if I can find something to put under here where y'all can see a little bit better. Here, we'll use my gloss stuff. I think this might let you see a little bit better. Get her at an angle. If I can get her to stay. Okay, so these, what I love about them, like I said, is they don't already have centers. So all I did was I took them and I kind of grabbed the petals, popped a little bit of hot glue on it. Fabri-Tac would be whatever you want. And I started adding them in here. I didn't worry about I just allowed them to add to the look of this ruffle. We'll do a few of these real quick. I see someone says that Virgos rock, and I'm going to have to agree with that. Okay. And we're getting real close, y'all. We're down to the nitty-gritty. And just add these as you go around. You can add them with your metal. You can add them in. See, I'm just tucking these in. And I didn't put them all together. I just added them where I thought I had a blank spot. And kept them from going flat. This one I'm going to fold. And then how about one right here? I dropped her. One more right here just to pull it together. Okay, and then the last thing with these kois that I did was I did want to pull them down into the skirt. So I took a couple of, well, more than a couple, but a few of the small ones, and I just scattered them on her skirt. Again, I made sure they weren't lined up, but I wanted to pull the whole thing together. And you can see just a teeny tiny touch of glue will hold this. This is tulle. Be sure if you're using hot glue to do this that you protect your fingers because you will get burned from the other side. And add a few. Okay, now let me show y'all. We're not going to do the back because we are over and all that. So you can see that we just added a few here. We've got this coming together. We're starting to pull it together. And we're going to go ahead and add. I'm going to show y'all what a difference this will make by adding just another piece of ruffle if you have an open spot. Grab it, a little hot glue on it. So this place here, I'm not liking right here where I've got too much room. So I'm just going to add another little ruffle in here. So then we're adding the extra ruffles and then just work your way around with a little bit of extra, and you can see how that, once it opens up, it's not totally dry. And just keep working with it. So see there? And then final touch. This is it. I used two things. I used the brads from Debutante Collection. We've already established all this stuff is so pretty. And this is number 579302. And I used the Memory Hardware Pearls from Frank. And, oh goodness, there's not a number on here. I'm sorry, but I know that Carrie can tell y'all. Okay. And all I did, just dumped a few. I want to show y'all how I like to do the brads and how they also can go and start, add you some color here and there. I'm just going to grab a couple of them. And again, I did not I don't even know which ones I used, and it really doesn't matter. I did go with the gold beads only for this project because to me that was what went best with the project, number one, and with the color of the tulle. Okay, and for the brads, instead of cutting them off, and I wasn't using them for flower centers, I was just using them to tuck in here and there. I like to just bend these a bit when I'm tucking them in, add some glue, and let the stems of the brad be what holds them. So I'm just going to tuck one in here. You can see just adding a little bit more detail to this area. So give it a little bend. And just feed them in. Any place you see a little spot. So you can see here, adding that. And then like I said, I only used the gold because of the color. I'm not going to go all the way around. But if it was a big spot, I added a big bead. And these, again, I just used Fabri-Tac, put a little bit on them, and tuck them into all the centers. So all the koi flowers now have centers. And I used the little ones, and the tulle will hold the little ones on the skirt. Just touching the top. They won't. If you went with the real big beads on the skirt, it's going to pull your tulle down to where it doesn't stand out. So you definitely want to use the small ones on the skirt. Okay. So there is what we've ended up with. And I'm going to turn her. I'm going to, now that, whoops, sorry, I keep hitting that. Definitely need to do a flatter. So at this point, what we would do is we would put her on our base with the ruffle around the bottom, the Lazy Susan on top of this. Use something strong if you do this, like E6000. It will hold. I've had mine done at least a couple of weeks now, and I've lifted it up, not thinking, not lifted it by the bottom, and that has definitely held. I'm sure there is a hardware that would be better. And once you get it done, you want to trim. And I'm going to go up and I'm going to show y'all up high with the one that's totally done so y'all can really see that. So bear with me one sec. Let me come up here. Okay. Oh, I'm hot. Hey, y'all. Okay, now I'm going to, oops, give me one sec. Okay, now I'm going to show y'all the one that's totally done so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, first off, this little section here, when she's totally done, it's easier to see. You can see where I talked about adding, let's go this way, adding extra ruffle. So that's what that was, you know, something I did along it. Then the base, you want to make, come out, okay. You want to make sure it's cut a little longer, and you can see that here. And that allows, and in here is, I'm going to lift it up where you can see. Okay, in here is the bottom, and you can see that gap, and that's because that's where the Lazy Susan is. So here's the ruffle. It's like looking in a mirror and trying to do it. So there you go. So that is it, y'all. I am so excited y'all were here. I really loved being here, and I'm really glad y'all hung with me through a little bit of an overrun. I want to remind y'all, don't forget that Adrienne is on Thursday, and she's going to be using the oil pastels, and they are fabulous. I can't wait to try them myself. And also, don't forget the warehouse box, because you know you want to have it because there's so many gorgeous things in it. Thanks again for being here. I so appreciate it. Bye.